Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. Before I get started with today's broadcast, know that it has been exactly 1 year ago today. News went for real on YouTube. I have been on here for one solid year. Wow, it's hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun. It's a bittersweet day because I have decided that today will be my last news broadcast. Probably going to wonder why, but you know, as the word spreads, it'll probably come around, and I'll tell you. It's for a whole year. Through news articles that you would not believe. I have compiled shows after shows after shows. I've done breaking news shows. I've done special edition shows. I've done interviews. I have worked my proverbial tail off for the last year, and the views have just dwindled to practically nothing. I don't know if YouTube manipulates the numbers on this, but when I've got 247 subscribers and I can't even get a dozen views, there's something wrong. So I have decided efforts would be better spent in other areas, and I'm going to move on to other pastures. Everybody knows what my sources are as far as the news articles are concerned, because I always put the descriptions of my videos. I mean, we got Breitbart, we got BizPack Review, we got Liberty Headlines, we got Newsmax. Those are the top four. There's a lot of other. The Common Sense Show with Dave Hodges is one. There's a whole myriad of places you can go to get the news. And you know where to go now, because I have last year telling you what the sources are. So I think you can probably do it on your own, and you don't need me to sit here and stutter and stagger over the news and these foreign names and the pronunciations. I'm going to move my up and run of that. If you want to come in, I've still got the other. That is in the description. If you want to check that out, you can find me there. My personal email address, I put in the URL to this. If you want to try to reach me there for any reason, friends are always welcome. Wanting to spread drama and, you know, cause hate and discontent, keep that to yourself. I don't need that in my life. But working with everybody, they know who they are. I'm not going to bring up names and you know, to them unjustly, but all the effort that they put in. But when we're not getting views on a news show, there's, you know, something bad wrong, and you know, it's time to pull the plug. I appreciate the viewers and all the people that have stood with me. I even appreciate the trolls, because you know, you people, you want to throw the hate and discontent in there and tell me what all my faults are. That gives me something to work on, so I have room for improvement. So you know, it gets you banned because I don't have to take your hatred, but you know, it does tell me things that I need to work on to improve. So if you know, if anybody wants to come and find me over on my other channels, you're welcome to do so. Nothing in my heart but love for everybody. And with that being said, we'll move on. I've got 16 articles for you in today's show. All the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. And we'll just get started with them here. The very first one is off of Conservative Tribune. It says, Mexico and U.S. agree on sugar deal. After months of negotiations, the United States and Mexico have reached an agreement regarding sugar trading between two countries and the reactions of those most affected by the terms of the agreement have varied. Some have argued that the sugar deal would benefit both countries, while others, particularly small business members of the U.S. sugar industry, said that the deal would cause the cost of their raw materials to increase, according to Reuters. Nonetheless, the agreement has been called a significant hurdle cleared by two countries ahead of more complex discussions regarding the North American Free Trade Agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, which are expected to start in August. Would reportedly reduce the share of refined sugar that Mexico can send to the U.S. to 30% of total sugar sent. However, the U.S. sugar producers said that the pact contained a loophole that they predicted would allow Mexico to dump more sugar on the U.S. market or fail to provide raw sugar to refineries, according to Fox Business. Spokesman for the American Sugar Alliance indicated that he was concerned about the potential problematic loophole, but was willing to work with the government to find a solution. Rick Pascoe, head of Sweetener Users Association, was less optimistic, saying that the deal would raise the floor price for raw sugar, which would inevitably hurt cereal, beverage, and candy makers. He estimated that the price for raw sugar in the U.S. was currently about 80% above prices elsewhere in the world, and the recent trade deal with Mexico would increase it to 100%. If you're a food company looking for long-term investment in the U.S. and you're paying twice the world price, that's got to be a consideration going forward, Pascoe said, noting that roughly 600,000 U.S. jobs depend on sugar-using companies. The association determined that sugar input costs would rise by about $1 billion above government support prices, an increase that could result in more expensive product for consumers, as companies that oppose the government support for the sugar industry would have to compensate for their rise in production costs. Kurt Bashaw, CEO of Ohio-based Spangler Candy Company, said he, whoops, hamster jumped on me. Okay, said he was also disappointed in the agreement, as the agreed rise in the minimum price for Mexican sugar was likely to drive up Spangler's raw material costs. To be honest, I'm just very disappointed that the Trump administration didn't do more to level the playing field, which is something they promised over and over again to do for the American worker, Bashaw told Reuters. Supporters of the deal, however, contended that the agreement helped prevent Mexico from introducing retaliatory tariffs, as the U.S. threatened to impose duties of up to 80% on Mexican sugar if an agreement could not be reached. The government was concerned about Mexican sugar being unfairly sold below cost across the border, a practice reportedly aided by improper Mexican government subsidies. Kendall Bush, or I guess it's Bush, Mitchell Valley farmer and president of the Nebraska Beet Growers Association, applauded the deal, according to the Scottsbluff Star-Herald. He praised Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross and Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue for helping arrange the deal. We appreciate the work that Secretaries Ross and Perdue put into getting this settled. They had a lot to consider. It wasn't just sugar producers. There were other pressures from sugar users and producers like candy and beverages. Not to mention the momentum the agreement provided ahead of NAFTA negotiations in August, negotiations that conservative political experts predicted would not go well if the sugar deal failed. Daniel Pearson, a senior fellow at the conservative think tank Cato Institute and former chairman of the U.S. International Trade Commission, said the NAFTA conversation would have been more difficult if the sugar talks had melted down. An agreement could be reached on a sensitive topic like sugar bodes well for dealing with sensitive talks in NAFTA, he said. The next article cooperates. He's taking his time here. He's running in the wheel, but he's running slow. Well, he went a little crazy. So let's give him a second here to get his act together. Okay. In the right direction now. He got all confused. My goodness. It's off a BizPack review. I do know that much. Well, he's hot here this morning, so part of his problem. I've got an extra fan running on the computer to try to keep things cool, but wow. Okay, it says Trump gave the FBI new life after removing Comey. Now it's time to do the same at the IRS. Ron DeSantis from Florida says in an interview with the Daily Caller News Foundation that the FBI has a fresh start following James Comey's firing. Time for President Donald Trump to clean out the IRS, starting with Commissioner John Corsican. In this wide-ranging video interview, he spoke with passion, authority, issues ranging from media bias, the IRS, James Comey testimony, terrorism, the Paris Treaty, and Obamacare. A graduate of Harvard Law School and decorated veteran, DeSantis was elected to the House in 2012, ran for the Senate in Florida until Senator Marco Rubio re-entered that race, and is now considering running for governor. Mr. President, a fresh start at the FBI. Do the same at the IRS, he says. Escalated his repeated calls for Trump to fire John Corsican, who stonewalled the congressional investigation into the IRS abuse to Obama's political opponents. It has been held accountable for targeting conservative groups, DeSantis says, stunned at how the legacy media, Donald Trump was elected. The legacy media has stepped up normal journalistic judgment and instead are running stories to foster their own narratives, according to DeSantis. Have they decided to be antagonistic, but they plan to be the force that just drives him out of office, the congressman says. Washington culture, DeSantis, yeah, newcomers to government needs to decide if Washington is a swamp that needs to be drained or a hot tub to enjoy the party. He joins other conservatives in calling for Congress to work through their August recess rather than take a break when Trump's legislative agenda and Senate confirmation seem stalled and obstructed by the Democrats. And former military prosecuting governors and mainly aligned pulled the nation out of on June the 2nd. And mayors, well, too much here, behind their citizens, DeSantis argues, the Constitution specifically prohibits states from entering into international alliances or treaties. Of the House on National Security supports Trump's recognition of ideologues of the violent Islamic terror we are watching escalate, who too often blame America for antagonizing terrorism and having few clear policy solutions to terrorism. Explaining the embarrassing Republican disarray over repealing Obamacare, the congressman reveals, despite all the campaign rhetoric, we don't have a majority in the House and Senate who actually want to fully repeal it. As the Republican congressman continues to battle over health policy and a replacement bill, he believes the Democrats' threat to use any House or Senate vote to replace Obamacare as a weapon will evaporate if health insurance starts to become more affordable because of the policies enacted in the coming consensus. Of his interview, he says, constitutional government is under a great deal of stress right now. Citizens lose when, as has happened, the Congress, in avoiding hard decisions, codes ambiguous powers to the executive branch, the administrative state, and judges. And then at the bottom of it, it says, for more on DeSantis, see his website, and they got a link to that, and his Facebook page, and there's a link to that, or follow him on Twitter. There's a link to that. C-SPAN offers this page on his works too, so there's a link for that. The next article off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, left condemns anti-Shara protests, not Islamic terrorism. And the media are swiftly these nationwide anti-Shara protests as hate speech and bigotry. Demonstration that took place in 28 cities called March for Human Rights is organized by Act for America, a Virginia-based nonprofit group which aims to raise awareness of the human rights abuses committed under Sharia law. Our nation is built on freedom of religion, a pillar of our democracy. Please respect, protect, and honor on Act for America's website. However, many aspects of Sharia law run to basic human rights and are completely incompatible with our laws and our democratic values. Despite the marches being peaceful and, in fact, promoting human rights, left-leaning civil rights groups have been quick to label it under the typical SJW vernacular, Islamophobic hate speech marches. Act Muslims as terrorists who want to subvert the political system in this country, said Heidi Beirich, Poverty Law Center. They disseminate lies and fallacies about Muslims to spread fear about the religion. Fallacies that blew up dozens of girls in Manchester in May, or stabbed and killed several people on the London Bridge, or plowed a truck through scores of people in Nice, France. It was radical Islamic terrorism, tempered by the tenets of Sharia law. NBC has also labeled the group as Islamophobic while covering the event. Woman for the Muslim Public Affairs Council stated that the demonstrations are against Muslims and American values. The statement is puzzling considering that it's Sharia law that permits committing honor killings, genital mutilations, wife beating, draconian apostasy laws, demonization of homosexuals and child marriage, all of which are completely contrary to American and constitutional values. Liberals who claim to wave the banner of feminism, but share like Linda Sarsour, says Scott Kressler, one of the event's organizers. And he'd be right. The next one is off of Newsmax. And it says, report, Secret Service does not have any Comey tapes. Between former FBI Director James Comey and President Donald Trump don't exist, Secret Service told the Wall Street Journal in response to a Freedom of Information request filed by the newspaper. Trump suggested last month that there were tapes of his private conversations with Comey after he had fired Comey, tweeting, "Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press." On Friday, Trump wouldn't quash rumors about the tapes when he told reporters, "I'll tell you about that maybe sometime in the very near future," adding, "Oh, you're going to be very disappointed when you hear the answer, don't worry." Just because the Secret Service doesn't have tapes doesn't mean other agencies don't, the Journal reports. But the Secret Service has handled a recording system within the White House for past presidents. In response to your request, the Secret Service has conducted a reasonable search for responsive records, the agency wrote to the Journal. It appears from a review of Secret Service main that there are no records pertaining to your request that are referenced in these indices. article is off of Gateway Pundit. And the hamster's running. Okay. At least 9 of 38 deep state leaks to media outlets are linked or related to James Comey. And we'll get it to scroll up here a little bit. Today, fired former FBI Director James Comey stated that he leaked data to a Columbia University friend who in turn provided the leaked information to the New York Times. Comey did this even though he stated under oath in the past that he never leaked information to the press. The current updated analysis of the most recent list of so-called leaks being reported and repeated by the liberal mainstream media, they're the MSM, involving President Trump included at least 38 leaks in total. Many of these leaks are now proven fabrications, and the probability that many remaining leaks are completely inaccurate is very high. The leaks are all being reported by biased liberal media outlets that were adamantly opposed to the election of President Trump. These leaks, in all cases, still are not supported with any names of so-called sources, and in all cases, the leaks are meant to destroy the current president. After today's testimony, it is important to note that former FBI Director James Comey reportedly made statements that were revealed in the liberal media as leaks. Comey admitted at least one leak today. Of the 38 leaks listed below, 9 are related to James Comey. How many of these did Comey actually leak? Here's an updated list of the leaks, the date they occurred, the source of the leak, and the analysis of the leak. Let's see, 6 of 17. Washington Post. Stated source, no identified. The leak, the nation's top intelligence official told associates in March that President Trump asked him if he could intervene within FBI Director James B. Comey to get the Bureau to back off its focus on former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in its Russian probe. Unknown source, likely fabricated. And I'm not going to read through all this because it would take me read all of them, but that is how these kind of go down. And they go back to the first, let's see, January 25th of 2017. There is a slew of these here, 19, I guess it said, to be exact. So if you want to read them all, you can pull that article up and take a look at all that. Good golly. Gotta wonder how many of those, that girl that's in jail right now, what's her name, Reality Winner? Gotta wonder how many of those she's responsible for. It says, note that the most leaks since the inauguration have come from CNN, 9, the Washington Post, 8, and the failing New York Times, 84. These 3 MSM outlets best fit the label of very fake news. Hillary Clinton's creepy campaign manager John Podesta's emails released before the elections by WikiLeaks show that the Clinton campaign was in cahoots with the mainstream media. At least 65 mainstream media reporters were meeting offline with top Hillary advisors. The WikiLeaks emails also show that as early as December of 2015, Podesta discussed Trump's Trump's romance with Putin and the potential for using it as means to slander Trump. There is a very high probability that Podesta is behind some of the leaks reported since the election. If Podesta is involved, then the probability that some of the leaks are made up is very likely. Also, regardless of whether the leaks are coming out of the government or are just being made up by someone like Podesta, the mainstream media outlets reporting these stories insulting the Trump administration are showing the lowest form of journalistic professionalism, because these reports all include no sources, no documents, no support, and the timing of these releases is set to cause maximum political damage right after the president leaves the country. Simply put, these leaks are political propaganda. Fortunately for President Trump, the majority of the U.S. that voted him into office stopped reading failing newspapers like the New York Times and stopped watching MSM media outlets like the Real Fake News, CNN, a long time ago, and Comey today even admitted that many of these leaks are dead wrong. The president has the law on his side. Attorney General Sessions needs to add these entities and individuals to a growing list of corrupt swamp dwellers that need to be brought to justice. Former FBI Director Comey needs to be added to the list. Drain the swamp. It's also off of the Gateway Pundit. And it says, Judge Janine on James Comey. He's a predator. This was not the first time he leaked. And there is video if you would like to pull it up to watch that. Judge Janine Pirro weighed in on James Comey's testimony on Thursday in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Pirro called Comey a predator who wanted to take President Trump down. It sure looks that way. Judge Janine says, James Comey comes across as someone who is so wily and so calculating. He gets to the point that he says, I'm going to start leaking this stuff now. About his time, his background as a prosecutor. And what I would like to know is he the leaker? Is he the guy who was so comfortable? And the answer is, why did he didn't leak it to himself? And the beach is hogwash. The fact is that he is so comfortable that he leaked this to a liberal professor. Tell me he was a predator. He was looking to take down Donald Trump. What he wanted to do is take the president down. He is an operator. He is part of the liberal elite. It's off of Breitbart. As Gomert says, that is Gomert, not Gomer. Gomert says Obama, DOJ, not the Russians, tried to influence the presidential election. And there's video in that if you'd like to pull it up to see that. In an appearance on Fox America's News HQ on Sunday, Representative Republican of Texas said that if anyone interfered with the 2016 presidential election, it wasn't the Russians, but the He specifically named former Attorney General Lynch and former FBI Director James Comey. Comey's testimony last week before the Senate Intelligence Committee, where he said that Lynch had told him to refer to the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information as a matter rather than an investigation, even though Clinton was under investigation. Comey said that led him to publicly announce the Clinton investigation in July of 2016. At best, it was an attempt to manipulate the election, not by the Russians in this case, but by the Attorney General herself, because that came from Comey, Gomert said. Totally ruined his own credibility, or what was left of it, Gomert said. He did vast damage and raised big red flags and questions over Loretta Lynch's job as head of the Justice Department. Lynch was using her official position to help the campaign of Hillary Clinton, and that didn't seem to bother him enough to do a memo, Gomert said. Gomert said he the subject of a congressional investigation. We need to round up all those people Comey talked to, because we have a conspiracy remaining afoot in the Department of Justice that is going to destroy this president, and they got to be fired, if not worse. I agree with that. Have Dave Hodges, The Common Sense Show. It says, To save Trump's presidency, Hillary must be prosecuted for treason. It's a slam dunk case. Your victory against the deep state. Do. An agent for the deep state, she sold uranium to Russia, put Hillary in prison. That's supposed to read, but that's how it. I published my assertion that Clinton was a traitor in 2015. I repeated this charge nearly 8 months ago, so you may be wondering why I am. First, we're in on how much the Clintons made on selling uranium to the Russians. They made $0.85. Second, it was not Dave Hodges that exposed the Clinton treasonous sale of uranium to the Russians. The information is so public, and previously in the MSM, Clinton would or even be executed under our nation's laws related to treason. Paragraphs will clearly demonstrate that Clinton was not working solely for her own benefit. She was working to put uranium in the hands of Russia and therefore increase the likelihood that World War III will happen, which is a definite deep state goal. Hillary is risking her life. Member of the Obama administration and former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has proven herself to be the Ethel Rosenberg of her generation. You may recall your U.S. history as Ethel Rosenberg sold nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War in an act every bit as egregious as Ethel Rosenberg's treason. Hillary Clinton sold uranium to the Russians while serving as the Secretary of State. Original source of this treasonous act committed by Clinton was one other than the liberal rag we call the New York Times. The proof is undeniable that Hillary Clinton committed the treasonous act of selling uranium to the Russians while Secretary of State, as reported by the New York Times. The Russian blood money, as reported, is being held in an offshore account and was used to fund her former run for the presidency. One sign that points to a 35,000-acre ranch by John Christensen near the town of Gillette, Wyoming. Here in a picture, and it says Uranium One has the mining rights to Mr. Christensen's property. More BLM chicanery, multiple BLM ranches. The New York Times further asserts that members of the Canadian mining industry who have supported Clinton's campaign financed and sold off a company known as Uranium One. Uranium One is directly responsible for transferring uranium from BLM land to the Russians through an offshore holding company. Again, according to the New York Times, the Russians, through 3 separate transactions, acquired Uranium One while paying off the Clintons and the Canadian partners from 2009 to 2013. The business deal also involved paying Bill Clinton $500,000 for a speech on energy, which was delivered in Moscow. Did you know that the final numbers are in and that the Clintons made $2.85 billion from selling the Russians uranium? Did you also know that Hillary was working for the deep state when she sold uranium to the Russians for the purpose of making World War III more likely? Did you know that the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed by the U.S. for selling nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union? Does this mean that Hillary will be executed? Since Hillary was doing this at the behest of the deep state, would putting Hillary on trial expose the deep state's desire for starting World War III with the Russians? Attention, Donald Trump, it's time to act. Prosecute Hillary Clinton not for the emails, but for being a traitor. This would expose the deep state for all Americans, even the couch sitters, to see. The next article is off of BizPac Review. I'm just working on it here. Okay, it says 12 Democrat staffers arrested, charged with voter fraud. A group of Indiana Democrats were arrested in connection with submitting fraudulent voter registrations. Prosecutors charged 11 temporary canvassers and their supervisor, Holiday Burke, for the Indiana Voter Registration Project for submitting fraudulent voter registration applications before the 2016 election, according to the Associated Press. And scroll up a little bit to poke the hamster. Group is managed. Whoops! Wow! He spun that wheel until it about flew off the cog. The hamster wheel set back up here. My goodness. Is managed by the Patriot Majority USA, who has links to the Democratic Party, including to former President Bill Clinton and former Senator Harry Reid, the AP reported. Focused on getting out the black vote, it became the subject of an investigation in August after Hendricks County around a dozen registrations suspicious. Prosecutors and police believe the fraud occurred because of a very bad, ill-advised business practice of giving canvassers a daily quota of registrations to meet, according to the AP. Now let's see if he can bring this up without Brenda here. Poor little hamster. He'll be very glad for me to stop doing these shows, I'll tell you what. I'll give him a second here to get his act together. Goodness gracious. Okay. Well, I thought we had it. And then he went berserk. So well, come on, hamster. A search warrant unsealed on November the 14th says some workers admitted to falsifying registration, saying they faced the possibility of losing their temporary job if they didn't register at least 10 new voters a day. The probable cause affidavit says supervisors told canvassers to obtain their quotas necessary. Canvassers were paid $10 an hour and worked 5-hour shifts. By giving someone a financial motive to meet a quota is what caused these canvassers to cut corners and do things that are not only under the goal of having legitimate registered voters, but led to a situation where it bled over into criminal conduct, Marion County Prosecutor Terry Curry said. The defendants face a prison term of up and a half years. Indiana Voter Registration Project is faced with a fine of $10,000. I think it should be much higher than that, but hey, is off of BizPac Review. It says Gingrich says Mueller isn't neutral, calls on Congress to abolish special counsel. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, called on Congress to stop special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 presidential election. It's clear that former FBI Director James Comey's testimony before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence will interfere with Mueller's ability to conduct a fair investigation. It's very clear that Comey hates Trump, Gingrich told radio host John Catsimatidis. Comey is clearly hostile to Trump. According to Gingrich, lawmakers should take action to stop the independent investigation from moving forward. I think Congress and they should abolish the independent counsel because Comey makes it so clear that it's the poison fruit of a deliberate manipulation by the FBI director leaking to the New York Times deliberately set up this particular situation. He continued, it's very sick. Gingrich doubled down on his comments during an appearance on Fox News Sunday, saying allegations against President Donald Trump are unwarranted attacks. I think this is going to be a witch hunt. I think that Comey himself, by his own testimony, tainted this particular process. He said, you have a director of the FBI deliberately leaking in order to create a special counsel who we're now supposed to believe is going to be this neutral figure. I think that's just nonsense. The next article is off of Newsmax. And it says, Trump lawyer won't rule out president firing Mueller. Scroll down a little bit here. Trump won't rule out the possibility of firing special counsel Robert Mueller, who was appointed to investigate Russia's meddling in the 2016 U.S. elections and possible ties to the Trump campaign, lawyers told ABC on Sunday. Sesklow said it is possible that Trump and his advisors would discuss that scenario if there was a basis on which to make such a decision, saying the president has authority to take action is ultimately the decision for the president to make. However, Sesklow, he thought it was completely conjecture, and I can't imagine what would arise. Trump's attorney also stressed throughout the interview that fired FBI Director James Comey has been brought into question on multiple occasions, but dodging a question about whether Trump would release tapes of his conversation with Comey even exist. Kilo also tried to center attention several times on the fact that Comey gave his notes of the conversation with the president to a friend so they would be published in the media, saying the leak from James Comey, it was unprecedented move for an FBI director to disclose in this way a conversation he had with the president. The next article is off of BizPac Review. And it says, John McCain tells Guardian American leadership better under Obama. Octogenarian Senator McCain has lost his damn mind. Consensus among liberals and now increasingly among conservatives who are fed up that McCain trashes President Trump whenever he wants to make a headline, proving that he's the grand poobah of Capitol Hill rhinos, Republicans in name only, again threw Trump under the bus by a liberal foreign newspaper of American leadership, Obama then under Trump. Leadership is concerned, yes, McCain told The Guardian. Was outraged last week when Trump criticized London's Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan, after he blithely told Londoners there's no reason to be alarmed after its third terrorist attack in 3 months. Trump was merely responding to previous nasty attacks by Khan, who had slammed the president's ban to stem terrorism. More upset at Trump's brash Twitter rhetoric, a terrorist who killed innocent people, McCain claimed it sent a message that the United States doesn't want to lead anymore. What do you think the message is? The message that America doesn't want to lead, McCain said. Any rational person would interpret Trump's tweet as sending the exact opposite message. He's trying to say or put it another way here. Let's see. He's saying there is a reason to be alarmed by weekly terrorist attacks, and we need to act now. Specifically, Trump has vowed, we will win this fight against terrorism. We will destroy ISIS, and we will protect civilization. While John McCain is busy trashing Trump over his blunt rhetoric, he obviously forgot that he has insulted foreign leaders in far more dangerous ways. The saber-rattling rhino is deathly afraid to offend Muslims, but has no problem tweaking the nose of deranged North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, whom he called a crazy fat kid. Kim Jong-un, whose daily threats to the U.S. ally South Korea with missile launches, was enraged by McCain's childish jab and promised revenge on anyone who insults him. DPRK vowed the revolutionary forces of the DPRK, with its nuclear force for self-defense, will fulfill its sacred mission of devotedly defending its supreme leadership by dealing a merciless sledgehammer blow at those daring to hurt the dignity of the supreme leader. After learning that he had angered North Korea, which is an existential threat to the United States because it has a nuclear weapon, McCain moronically tweeted, "What did they want me to call him, a crazy skinny kid?" Meanwhile, Twitter smacked down McCain for his insane statement declaring the weak-willed Obama a strong leader. If foreign leaders liked Obama more than Trump, it's only because he was a pushover who let our literally get away with murder. And there's a list of the tweets if you want to pull them up and read those for yourself. I particularly like the one with a picture of McCain with a piece of duct tape over his mouth and a caption that says, "That's better." The next one that we have is off of Liberty Headlines. Liberty D.C., Maryland attorneys sue Trump over business dealings. In Washington, D.C. are expected to sue Donald Trump for accepting payments from foreign governments via his business empire. The lawsuit cites the U.S. Constitution's Emollients Clause, which says no federal official should receive a gift or a fee from federal government. It alleges unprecedented constitutional violations by the U.S. president, and Washington Post reports. The first such lawsuit filed by government entities. Organization Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington lodged a similar legal action in January. Trump told a reporter in the Oval Office the case was totally without merit, commented on the latest move. The constitutional challenges to Donald Trump's ongoing business ties as president just got some state-level muscle behind them. The lawsuit by the District of Columbia in Maryland isn't the first attempt to force the president to more fully separate himself from his real estate empire. The two governments bring a new level of legitimacy. The states face is whether they have the proper legal grounds to file this case, given that this is judicial terra incognita. There's no telling how the courts will react. There's never been a turned president quite like Mr. Trump, so there's never been a lawsuit quite like this one. If Maryland and D.C. are able to proceed, turnout, like many other Trump-related controversies, where the president's own words and those of his associates are used against him, while Mr. Trump pledged to from his day-to-day business operations, his son Eric has acknowledged he still gives his father regular financial updates. Senior advisor Kellyanne Conway also was recently reprimanded for praising daughter Ivanka Trump's clothing line. Telehub.com. Witnesses say I was there when Seth Rich was shot. passed me. He didn't even know he was shot, no pain. Eyewitness said Seth Rich was walked past him and not he was removed from the crime scene by police. A man claiming to be Mark Mueller, Seth Rich's neighbor, who may also be going by the alias Scott Roberts, was at the scene when Rich was shot on July the 10th of 2016 and was listed in the police report. The eyewitness made a few shocking statements at a vigil for the late Democratic National Committee staffer, where Debbie Wasserman Schultz was also in attendance, captured on video. I was there when he, Seth Rich, got shot, and they walked him past me so that I could see him and identify him because I knew him in the neighborhood, and the police officer said he didn't even know he was shot, the eyewitness said. The ceremony begins at 6:29 into the video that's here in this article, if you want to take a look at it. It says at a timeline of Seth Rich's related tweets and retweets by Twitter user Scott Roberts, DC, starting the day Rich was shot as follows. The department put out a tweet saying, alert shooting at 0419 hours in the 2100 block of Flagler Place, Northwest at this time. Robert Vincent Brahman says, shooting Flagler Street, one victim in hospital. Flagler and West Street shooting update. This update is from a neighbor, not the DC Police Department. Victim. Another one here says 2016 DC homicide. Seth Conrad Rich, 27, male, 7/10/16. Reached out to the witness on the matter. Article is off of BizPac Review. Goes after Liz Warren's legacy. President Donald Trump's administration is expected to roll out a plan to curb the powers of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB, and lay out its review of large swath of banking regulations in a report expected to be released as early as Monday. Trump ordered Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury Department in early February to conduct a thorough review of regulations imposed on the banking and financial sectors after the housing market's collapse of 2007. The Treasury's report is expected to be far less reaching than the Financial Choice Act passed in the House June the 8th. The CFPB is the brainchild of Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who believes the Bureau is vital to constrain Wall Street and protect ordinary American consumers. The report, expected to be around 150 pages, will be highly critical of the CFPB and will recommend that the entity be stripped of its authority to review financial institutions, the Wall Street Journal reports. Currently, the Bureau has the authority to both enforce consumer laws and review individual firms on a rolling basis. Wall Street firms have focused on Trump's promise to overhaul Dodd-Frank since he signed the executive order in February. Specifically, major banks want him to do away with the Volcker Rule, which limits how Wall Street firms trade and invest their own money. The Treasury report is expected to include a section on the Volcker Rule. The section will reportedly advise that small banks with under $10 billion in assets be exempt from the rule entirely. The report is not expected to advise repealing the rule. The Treasury will also reportedly advise that banks submit a status update every 2 years instead of annually. Living Will's statements outline how banks could go through bankruptcy without the need for a taxpayer-funded bailout. Goal is off of Newsmax. It says Ninth Circuit upholds injunction against Trump's travel ban. Another U.S. appeals court stomped on President Donald Trump's revised travel ban Monday, saying the administration violated federal immigration law and failed to provide a valid reason for keeping people from 6 mostly Muslim nations from coming to the country. The decision, unanimous 3-judge panel of the San Francisco-based 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, helps keep the travel ban blocked, a second big legal defeat on the policy in less than 3 weeks. The administration has appealed another ruling against the ban to the Supreme Court, which is likely to consider the case. The White House said it is confident the High Court will uphold Trump's executive order. The 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Virginia last month cited the president's campaign statements calling for a total and complete shutdown on Muslims entering the U.S. as evidence that the 90-day ban was unconstitutionally steeped in animus and directed at single religious group rather than necessary for national security. The 9th Circuit, which heard arguments in Seattle last month in Hawaii's challenge to the ban, found no need to analyze Trump's campaign statements. It ruled law, not on the Constitution. Immigration, even for the president, is not a one-person show, the judges said, adding, national security is not a talismanic that once invoked can support any and all exercise of executive power. Hawkins, Ronald Gould, and Richard Paz, all appointed by President Bill Clinton, said the travel ban violated immigration law by discriminating against people based on their nationality when it comes to issuing visas and by failing to demonstrate that their entry would hurt American interests. The order did not tie citizens of Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen to terrorist organizations or identify them as contributors to active conflict, the court said. Provide any link between their nationality and their propensity to commit terrorism. In short, the order does not provide a rationale explaining why permitting entry of nationals from the 6 designated countries under current protocols would be in the interest of the United States, the ruling said. The judges pointed to a June 6th tweet by Trump saying the order was aimed at countries that helped demonstrate that he was not assessing whether the roughly 180 million citizens of the 6 countries had ties to terrorism, they said. Because of the conflict with the immigration law, the judges said they didn't need to consider violated the Constitution's prohibition on the government's favoring or disfavoring any religion. The 4th Circuit found the policy unconstitutional on this basis. The White House predicted a win at the Supreme Court. Frankly, I think any lawyer worth their salt 100% agrees that the president's fully within his rights and his responsibilities to do what is necessary to protect the country, spokesman Sean Spicer said. Trump's suspension of the U.S. refugee program also remains blocked. The 9th Circuit said he was required to consult with Congress in setting the number of refugees allowed into the country in a given year, and that he could not decrease it mid-year. The refugee program is not at issue in the 4th Circuit case. General Douglas Chin said the new ruling proved that our system of checks and balances enshrined in the Constitution for more than 225 years remains in place. Trump issued his initial travel ban on Friday in late January, bringing chaos and protests to airports around the country. It blocked its enforcement nationwide in response to a lawsuit by Washington State, a decision that was unanimously upheld by a different 3-judge 9th Circuit panel. The president then rewrote his executive order rather than appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court at that time. The new version, better withstand legal scrutiny, named 6 countries instead of 7, dropping Iraq, and spelled out more of a national security rationale. It also listed some reasons that travelers from those nations might be granted waivers allowing them into the U.S. despite policy. Several states and civil rights groups also challenged the revised ban, saying it remained rooted in discrimination and exceeded the president's authority. In March, U.S. District Judge Derek Watson in Hawaii blocked the new version from taking effect, citing what he called significant and evidence of religious animus in Trump's campaign statements. The Ninth Circuit on Monday narrowed Watson's ruling in some minor ways, allowing the administration to conduct an internal review of its vetting procedures for refugees and visa applicants. So that's all the news that I have for you today. Newscast that I plan to be doing, unless something magical happens, but I just don't see me doing it again. This isn't one of those videos where and say, oh, I'm never going to do this again. People been mean to me. Oh, no, I'm not crying. I'm not whining. I'm happy to go on with my life and pursue other interests. And I'm glad to have been of service to everybody for the past year and bringing you the news. But it is time for me to seek other venues. And I hope that you all wish me well in my endeavors. I hope you come and see me over on my other channels and enjoy watching me. So far, I haven't done any tutorials. I've just shown products and things that I have made, some of my artistic work. And I do have an Etsy channel up if you want to look it up under Brenda G's Designs. And that's Brenda G's, all one word. And followed by the word designs. You'll find it there. And there's a link to that over on my craft channel if you want to take a look at the stuff that I make. You know, I hope that some of you will come and find me and, you know, remain to be friends, because I've really appreciated getting your messages and making new friends here on this channel. And I hope you have enjoyed me as much as I have enjoyed you. If somebody mispronounce one of them foreign names, take a drink. If you're drinking up, you ain't going to care what they say. Good day and a good life.